Great. So Resolution Ventures is not a separate entity, it's just the social investment arm of the Resolution Foundation. The Resolution Foundation is mainly a think tank which looks at research into improving the living standards of those on low to middle incomes. So the core of what we do, and what you might see sometimes in the press, is doing economic research into living standards, things like wealth, housing, income, benefits, housing, other things that affect living standards, and looking at the effect of different policies and different events on people's lives and prospects for living standards on the low to middle incomes. What we're trying to do at Resolution Ventures is to take that understanding of some of those issues and apply it into social investment so that we can try and have a direct impact on some of the issues that we're interested in and some of the areas where we already do lots of policy and research work. So that means in this case, a particular focus on WorkerTech. So how can we help put together technology that helps people to improve their lives at work? We know that work is one of the biggest drivers for improved living standards. It's one of the key routes still to get people out of poverty, even though there is an increasing amount of in-work poverty as well. And we know that there are lots of ways in which even having work can still leave you in a precarious circumstance. So this is the focus of the work that we've been doing for a little while now. The kind of history of this, I guess, was that we started exploring this with Better Resolution Ventures from 2017. We did some what we kind of called a pilot project, and worked with them to support a few ventures through their program over 2017, 2018. Last year, they went put together a bigger program. So this is the WorkerTech partnership, which is backed by these foundations and companies. And we've pooled our resources to put together a bigger program, which will allow us to invest and support in something like 20 to 22 ventures over the next 3 years. So the focus for WorkerTech for us, and WorkerTech is kind of used sometimes interchangeably with future of work, but we find that future of work discussions mostly focus on things like remote working, video calls, better project management processes, lots of things that actually don't end up affecting the bottom half of the income distribution. So the focus for us when we talk about WorkerTech is on low paid workers, and then other aspects of vulnerability at work. So precarious contracts and temporary contracts, people who lack voice and power at work and the ability to control their own workplaces and have an influence on it, and workers with lower level qualifications or limited access to training. We know that all of those things also intersect with low pay, that if you are low paid, you're also more likely to be somebody who has less access to training. So we think that these things often go together. And those are the beneficiaries that we want to reach through the ventures that we're backing in this partnership. So what is WorkerTech all about? We think that there are, a number of processes that you go through in your working life. You start out in school, you might go on to other forms of education or training. You may go there straight into a job, or you may go through a period of not working. At different points in our lives, we go in and out of work. We might go in and out of training. Our objective is to find routes for people in all of these different positions to get to better work. And better for us means a whole range of things. And one of the things we're working on in this partnership is how we capture that impact in a number of good ways. But better can mean things like better conditions. It can mean organising in ways that improve the conditions in which you work. And that's partly means adapting to what people prefer to work. Better pay is an obvious one. Greater job security and greater flexibility can sometimes be in tension with each other. And some of those will suit people more than others. So that's partly about choice and about being able to adapt your work to your lives. Greater resilience to future change. So there's a constant future of work narrative about the role of automation and the way it's changing the workplace. But we know that industries rise and fall. Some sectors grow and some sectors shrink. So part of having good work is feeling secure that your job is still going to be around in the future, or if it's not, that you're going to be able to adapt to a job that is around in the future. Increased well-being is a really important factor. There are so many pieces of work which feed into people's well-being. We've got a report out today actually which talks about young people and mental health and the interaction of those two, of work and well-being and mental health. But so many of these, the other ways in which you can improve work will lead to increased well-being, and that's one of the other impacts we're really keen to see. And social support is a really important factor for work for many people, and it's one of the things that comes up as a factor when people say what good work means to them. Social support and interaction, feeling supported by your colleagues and your peers, feeling supported by your manager is an important aspect of good work. So the question is, what does technology have to do with all this? There are plenty of ways of achieving these things that have nothing to do with technology. We are very supportive of all of those, but we are particularly interested in the new potential that we can realize with some technology solutions here. The sort of processes we're dealing with are around things like getting access to training and delivery of that training, searching for a job, careers advice and information, and then negotiation and promotion processes that happen in a workplace. So if you're already in work, how do you achieve better conditions at work? It's mainly through either negotiations or a promotion. So the kind of primary thesis is that there are lots of information gaps in all of those activities that can improve conditions if we can close them. There are some other things that technology can do as well, but this is the kind of key one for us, is that quite often when you go into one of these processes, when you're looking for a training course, when you're looking for a job, when you're trying to negotiate a salary, you lack information that would get you the best outcome. And in recent years, lots of technology has arisen for people in professional roles and higher paid roles to get access to that information. So you can go and find out who's hiring from any number of job boards and from LinkedIn. You can find out what the workplaces are like through your networks, through things like Glassdoor. You can find out what the salary is for your role through a number of different kind of sites that aggregate that information. Lots of that information about the type of work that you might do, the salary you might get paid, the conditions you might expect from a role, and not available or much less available at the lower end of the income spectrum. And we think there's a lot of power in having that information to be able to make choices but by factoring that in. So some of these things around searching for a job and finding a good match to the sort of things that you want to do and are skilled to do, communicating with other workers and finding out what they're doing and what their experience of work is like, if it's somewhere that you should work. Lots of that happens informally at the moment, but it's very hard to get into industries where you don't already have contacts. So this is broadly what we're looking for, ways in which we can use technology and information to improve these processes for people to get better outcomes at work. And those outcomes are around pay, prospects, power, and progression. So what does that mean in practice? So as I said, we did a sort of pilot program with Bethnal Green Ventures from 2017 onwards, and we backed 6 ventures through them. And then we also backed 2 other ventures directly as part of that process. And that was part of us learning about this area and learning about social investment as well. So these are some of the ventures that we backed in that process, which are all still going. And some of which are also, growing really well at the moment. You may well have come across Organise, who have been creating campaigns for people to organise with each other to campaign for better workplace changes, and and it uses the power of a big network now of members. They've got more than 1 million people now members of Organise, 300,000 active every month. So they're using the power of those numbers to amplify people's campaigns for things to change at work. So that's a really good example of the way you might increase conditions through power. Break Room, we back directly, and they are putting together a way of understanding hourly jobs and rating hourly work so that you can see which jobs you might want to take, whether there's a better version of that job you're currently doing out there, and understanding things like, do shifts get moved at the last minute? Does your manager treat you fairly? Do people in the top office understand what's going on the shop floor? All the kind of informal bits of the job that are quite hard to understand from a job ad. We've got lots of other examples on here, and we can probably come back to these, but there's the kind of the themes we've grouped these into very loosely are around connecting communities of workers, building trust and skills, so helping to document skills that you're acquiring informally and prove those to employers and to other training providers. tracking better data on work and the type of work you're doing that others do, and comparing that information. And then transforming lives, so changing conditions, changing the relationship between people and work, and labour exchange, particularly looking at temporary work in that space. So what does all of that mean in practice? We've got together all these funders, we've identified what we think are some opportunities for technology to help, and we know that there are a whole bunch of very serious problems in this area, and we're going to be putting out some research in a few weeks that gives you a bit more detail on that. But the core of the WorkerTech partnership programme for us is partnering with Bethnal Green Ventures to support ventures that go through their Tech for Good programme. That means we help with the selection process. We are around as mentors and supporters during the accelerator programme, and then we're there as supporters of the ventures after the programme finishes to help with that exit process. We also are doing direct investment in this social investment programme, so we can invest in equity or loans into entities that are working on these problems. You don't have to be incorporated as a company. You do need to be working on something that benefits workers in the UK, and it needs to be benefiting one of the beneficiary groups I highlighted at the beginning, so particularly low paid workers or one of the other groups. And then alongside those two investment activities, we are going to be running events, meetups, working with the Bethnal Green Ventures and the existing WorkerTech meetup group. We're going to be publishing research that helps highlight these issues and where things can be improved. And we're going to be getting our own newsletter up and running, which helps to kind of document what else other activities going on in this space. We know there are lots of other researchers and people investing, people doing great stuff in these areas at the moment. It's growing rapidly. So we want to help capture that and share that information around. So I'll leave it there. Dharma, I'm sure you've got lots of questions, so we can get into the details of how to apply and how all of that works. Those are contact details. We've got a bunch of information published on our website at theresolutionfoundation.org. You can contact us by email at ventures@resolutionfoundation.org, or you can find me on Twitter.